Initiate chaos theory guarantees that we'll play like lightning shots, sounding like thunder. For every time in the face that it hits us, we're faster. Well, they should know by now. They see the world keeps trying to shake us. It only waits us. The pendulum swings. The pendulum swings. It's in a beautiful darkness. Only another. It's full steam ahead. Full steam ahead. All about the Petty Express. Misdirected from the start. It's a runaway train. Come on, freight train. I come a freight train. In a beautiful darkness, the Petty Express. In a beautiful darkness.
Hey guys, it's Mo, your conductress on the Petty Express. If you're new to the Petty Express, we watch trials, we fast forward, we watch usually trials that are just now finishing because I am on slower, timelines. But we are with our favorite Mighty Morphin Mormon, Lori. Now we have about this much left of day 3 in her case about Charles Vallow, her husband. We will then be quickly, after we finish up with this case, going on to the Brandon Boudreaux case, and hopefully we will be done by the time she gets sentenced on everything, which is the hopeful thing. So let's jump into this. Make sure I've got the sound booster on for you guys. Now, I believe we finished up with Nancy Joe. I want to say Nancy Joe. Yes, Nancy Joe. Also, why does this person have a... Oh, no. Okay, I'm going to have to find a different feed because this one has a person talking on it, which shouldn't. Where in the world in heaven and Hades? Oh, here we go. Wait, back. No, I didn't want to do that. Oh, for the love of Cheetos. If I remember correctly, finding day 3 of this particular part of the trial was incredibly difficult, which is why here we go. Okay, so we were just done with Nancy Joe, letting Lori get pissed off at another person. And then we have Christina Atwood. So we are going to another friend. Let's see what she has to say about Lori.
Would you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Christina Atwood.
How old are you, Christina?
I'm 52.
And if you can get just a little closer, you're very soft to the...
52.
Thank you. I know nobody wants to say that loud. Do you live here in Arizona?
Yes,
Did you live here in Arizona in 2019?
I did.
Wait, I have a question. Now, being from the Snow White persuasion of the Foundation Board, how in the hell has this woman lived in Arizona and not gotten like lobster red in the sunburn department? Unless she, like me, is an indoor cat and stays inside. But I have questions because I may be going on some like climate, stakeout in Arizona. And I can only imagine the amount of SPF I'm going to have to take. Because I can only imagine that compared to Indiana, Arizona is at the center of the sun. So, I mean, good on her, but the amount of sunblock this heifer has to use is probably crazy. Ah, big hats. Good idea. It's still too hot. Arizona, I'm still not sure how I feel about the heat.
Are you from here?
Not originally.
How long have you been in Arizona?
2009.
I want to start by asking you a little bit about some personal part of your life. Are you a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints?
Yes,
Were you raised in that religion?
I was.
As a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, did you ever meet Lori Vallow?
I did.
Do you recall sort of where you first met her? Start with that.
At church.
And do you recall approximately when you first met her?
We moved into that area in 2010, and I'm not sure if their family was there at that time or not, but
Sometime after that?
yes,
And did you know her husband, Charles Vallow?
yes,
Was that also through church?
yes.
Did you initially, well, let me start. Did you know they were married?
Yes.
Did you have more contact with one over the other?
More with Lori than with Charles.
And why was that?
My sons and husband had interaction with Lori through the primary program. And I didn't have much interaction with her before they moved to Hawaii. But when her and Charles,
What is the primary program? Again, look, as I have stated many and many a times when covering Lori Vallow or anything to do with the LDS Church, every LDS member I have met has been, a kind, loving, and, gracious person just trying to human the best with the rest of us. That being said, primary group sounds a bit culty.
moved to Hawaii, we went on a trip and we stopped to visit, and Charles was not at home. And so we interacted with Lori on that trip.
Okay. Do you see Lori Vallow at that time in the courtroom today?
I'm sorry, what was that?
See Lori Vallow in the courtroom today?
Yeah.
Okay, Spencer, thank you for that. Primaries are church groups for children in the LDS faith. Okay. Well, I mean, and you know what? It's probably just my not growing up in it because we had Sunday school. So it's not as though I am, opposed or against or not acculturated into kind of the religious experience of having youth kind of Sunday school or religious teachings. In fact, I went to a Catholic school for a good 2 years of my life. So I just will say that the terms are a little bit different when you're not used to them.
Yes.
And can you point her out and identify what she's wearing?
Purple top and suit coat, dark suit coat.
Your Honor, may the record reflect the witnesses identified the defendant.
It shall.
Okay, so you told us that you met Lori and Charles through the church. Do you know how long you went to church with them before they moved to Hawaii?
I don't recall what year they moved, but I know that we moved to the area in 2010 and we went and visited in 2015.
Okay. And that's, you visited them in
Hawaii.
Hawaii.
Yes.
Other than that, well, let me ask you, when you visited Lori in Hawaii, were her kids there with her? That you said they lived there, right?
Yes.
Okay, so did you know at that time how many children were living with Lori and Charles?
2,
Who were they?
JJ and Tylee. I don't know if Tylee was there that weekend. She may have been gone. It might have just been JJ.
But you were familiar with them having those 2 children?
Yes.
Residing with them?
Oh, and I also had known her son before they moved to Hawaii, was in our ward as well. But
and
he wasn't living in Hawaii, I don't believe.
that was, do you know if that was Colby?
Yes,
Was he a son from a prior marriage?
yes.
Did you know any of Charles's children from a prior marriage?
No.
When you went to Hawaii and saw Lori and JJ, how long did you Did you spend a day or weeks? How long were you visiting them?
We visited on a Sunday afternoon for an hour or two, and then sometime in that week, we got together for a couple of hours on the ocean, just paddleboarding, and that was it.
Had you had social interactions with Lori and Charles prior to going to Hawaii?
Not anything of other than waving or saying hello or something, no.
So mostly it would have been prior to that tied to any church activities or
Right.
things like that?
Correct.
Did you at some point learn that,
That strikes me as a little odd. And again, it might be not being an LDS member that a lot of your social interaction is kind of married to or kind of lumped in with church activities. But I can tell you, I'm not going to go and visit in another state, a state like Hawaii, you know, people that I'm just kind of tangentially like in the same parish or congregation with. So it would seem that they had a closer relationship than just kind of they were thrown together because they were in the same ward or church as the, well, Vallows. So that being said, maybe a lot of their kind of interactions are married. So the social is part of the church and the church is part of the social, and it's kind of all intertwined. But to me, I wouldn't just hang out with someone just because we went to the same church.
Lori and Charles had moved back to Arizona?
Yes.
How did you learn that?
I'm not positive if it was that I ran into them in the temple, because I recall one time seeing them both at the temple.
And do you recall if that was around 2018?
Like, yes.
When you said you ran into them, you're saying both Charles and Lori you saw at the temple.
Yes.
So you learned they're back in Arizona at this point. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you ever have Lori ask you to go with her to Hawaii?
Yes, she did invite me.
Do you recall when that was?
I believe it was the fall or late summer of 2018, but I'm not positive.
Do you recall ever do you remember being interviewed by the police?
Yes.
And were you interviewed by a couple different detectives?
Well, thank you for
Yes.
listening and working, JKD
In
Buck.
April of 2021, do you remember speaking with a detective, Ron Ball?
Yes.
I'll have
Do
to
you
look
remember
at that.
telling
I'm not
him
sure.
that sort of the beginning of the year of 2019 is when Lori asked you if you wanted to go to Hawaii?
Could have been. Yep.
Does that sound familiar to you?
Yes.
Did she tell you why she wanted to go to Hawaii?
No, I don't recall.
Let me ask you this. When you spoke with the police back in 2020, was your memory better at that point about all of what
For
was going
sure.
on? Now that it's 2025, has your memory faded as to some of the details?
Yes.
Would listening to a portion of your interview about that help potentially refresh your recollection?
Yes.
And Your Honor, if I can have my paralegal go up with Exhibit 282.
Go ahead.
Come on, you can do it. Let's get some technology in here. You would think they would have this possibly queued up just in case.
If you can just listen to this portion and see if that refreshes your recollection as to why Lori was asking you to go to Hawaii and when? Talking to the detective about this sort of time period in January where Lori's asking you to go to Hawaii, and there's a lot of things going on there.
Yes, I recall that. I actually remembered the invitation being prior to that, and what I was referring to there was something else.
Okay. So there was a prior time you had gone to Hawaii to see Lori in a prior invite, correct?
No, I just gone in 2015 with my family.
Okay.
That's the only time
That you went there with
that I
her?
went there, yes.
Okay. So having listened to that recording, did it refresh your recollection about Lori inviting you to Hawaii in sort of the January of 2019 period?
Yes, but I didn't say there that I was invited to go, and I thought that that was previous to that time, but at some point in either the fall or the spring there, I thought it was the fall, winter, she invited me to go to Hawaii,
Okay.
and I wasn't able to go.
When, well, let me ask you, so in January of 2019, did Lori reach out to you about some things that were going on in her life?
Yes,
Did she talk to you about her marriage?
she shared that she was upset with Charles.
And did she indicate whether or not she was still living with him?
She had indicated that she was not with him at the time.
Did she indicate that she had gone to Hawaii?
Yes,
And did she indicate that she was not telling anyone that she was there?
she indicated that she was keeping it, that there wasn't very many people she was sharing it with, yes.
Okay. Did she indicate that Charles was back in Texas?
Yes,
Did she indicate that Charles had JJ with him in Texas?
yes,
Did she indicate that her daughter Tylee was staying with her brother Alex?
yes,
Did she indicate that Charles had tried to take her temple recommend away, and this was one of the reasons she left?
yes,
Now, again, not being LDS, I do know that the temple recommend you need to have that in order to go to the big white temples that you see, LDS temples. I do know that you have to, be living a godly life without scandal, keeping up with your 10% tithing, obligations and others kind of obligations. I do know that, your temple recommend can be taken away if you start straying from the doctrines of LDS, if you start doing things that the temple isn't really a fan of. And that can be taken away. Then you don't have access to certain, I guess, ceremonies and religious celebrations that would be performed in the temple, regardless of whether you're LDS or not. You have to have a temple recommend in order to get into the temple. Again, that is all I know about that. So for Lori, who sees a lot of her identity in her sort of LDS faith and the mutation of that with Charles, this could be something that would honestly make her want to leave Charles. Now, Charles probably was just telling the truth about how absolutely batshit she had gotten and, told the bishop, and the bishop's like, yeah, that sounds pretty batshit. But
And was it her, did she tell you that she didn't want Charles to know where she was?
I don't recall.
So if you had said that to the police back in April of 2021, would your memory have been better back
For
then?
sure.
Do you contest that you told the police back then that she was trying to make sure that Charles didn't know where she was?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Would you, if you had told the police back in April of 2021 that Lori told you she didn't want Charles to know where she was, would you have been truthful back then?
For
telling
sure,
him that?
yes.
Okay. Do you know how long she stayed in Hawaii?
I don't.
Did you ever become aware of her going to Idaho as well?
No, not until December of 2019.
Do you know how long she stayed, how long she didn't let Charles know where she was?
I don't recall.
At some point, did you learn she was back in Arizona?
Yes,
And did she reach out to you to invite you to any groups?
yes.
Do you recall approximately when the first time it was that you met with her in some group format in 2019?
I believe it was spring 2019, maybe February.
And do you recall, were there other people at that meeting?
Yes,
Do you recall who was there?
yes.
Who was it?
Zulema, Melanie Gibb, Nicole Earl, and Serena Sharp.
Who organized that? Or who invited you? Let me ask that. Did Lori invite you, or did one of these other women invite you?
I don't recall.
Do you recall whose house it was at?
It was at Zulema's.
Okay. And did you know at that time if Lori and Charles were still separated?
Could you say that again?
Did you know at this meeting if Lori and Charles were still separated, living in different homes?
Yes, I believe so.
Did you know who was caring for JJ?
It's hard to get a read on her. I can't tell if she is so embarrassed to have been sucked into all of this that she doesn't want to be here for this, or because Lori and Chad's kind of perversion of LDS doctrines and sort of kind of pillars of their faith was so abhorrent to her. But this is like pulling teeth. I get that you don't want to be here, but I don't know, something about her is off to me, and maybe it's just me being weird, but she looks alternately angry and irritated to have to be here. And I can understand, again, I think it would be deeply offensive if I held, deeply religious, beliefs, and then someone perverted that and got me, tangled up in crazy and I had to go testify. But she seems oddly reluctant to give any details, and that the things that she does remember, she's not definitive about, and she seems a bit confused.
At that time?
Yes, I believe she was at Alex's.
JJ?
Oh, sorry, JJ. I believe JJ was in Texas.
Still with Charles? Mm-hmm. And that's a yes?
Yes,
And then you said Tylee was still staying with her uncle Alex?
yes.
Did you know where Lori was living at that time?
With Alex.
Her boyfriend brother, who's
Had you
shocked
met
with that one.
these other women prior to this meeting in February-ish of 2019?
The only other person that I knew was Nicole Earl.
Okay. So this was the first time you were meeting the person whose house it was at, Zulema?
Correct.
The first time that you were meeting Melanie Gibb?
Correct.
And the first time you said Serena, is that Serena Sharp?
Correct.
Was there anything that Lori said at this meeting in February-ish of 2019 that she said about Charles that stood out to you?
She was concerned about dark spirits plaguing him.
Did she in fact tell you that he was possessed by dark spirits?
I don't recall.
Did you recall talking to the police, again, back in April of 2021, and advising them that this is the first time you're hearing that Charles is possessed?
If I said it then yes.
When
Okay, see, possession and kind of exorcism of deviant or evil spirits is kind of my old, religion's bailiwick, recovering Catholic here. So it does feel Again, I don't know enough about the LDS faith to know if demonic possession is a tenet that they hold, or this is some weird Lori Chad kind of amalgamation of whatever the hell they were thinking. But it does seem a little odd, and it doesn't seem like something one would just drop out there if it wasn't something that even if it was somewhat fringe, if it wasn't something that, the LDS faith wasn't at least somewhat aware of or somewhat acknowledged, because she seems like a very straight-laced, tight, very, this is doctrinal, this is not doctrinal. And she seems like the wrong one or an odd one to kind of bring into what could be seen as blasphemous or a very not affiliated with the actual teachings of the LDS Church kind of small group. She seems like the wrong one to bring in if you don't want this coming back to the bishop, if this is a little on the gray area. So, Lori, bad picking on this one. But I don't know if she was just genuinely horrified or she does not want to be any more involved with this than what she was already made involved by having Lori invite her. But she's very reluctant and very hazy on a lot of details that I would think if this was something anathema, if this was something weird that, Lori kind of came with from left field from, that this would be kind of something etched in your memory.
When you were meeting on this weekend, what do you remember about this group meeting? Was it a night, a weekend? How was that?
It was an evening. We may have met twice in the evening that weekend.
Did you know where Serena was from? Like, did she live locally?
She did not. She was visiting from out of state.
When you were meeting at these in February of 2019,
All right, we're going to have to bump her up to
do you
1.5.
recall telling police that Lori was talking about Charles being dark or having a dark spirit?
Yes,
And do you recall saying that he was possessed and she had a name for who he was possessed by?
Beelzebub? Baphomet?
sorry, can you say that one more time?
Sure. Do you recall telling the police that he was possessed and she had a name for who he was possessed by?
I don't recall, but believe that I said it.
Would listening to your recording help refresh your recollection as to that?
Yes.
Your Honor, if we can have her listen to Exhibit 200.
Go ahead.
Oh, that baby ponytail. Okay, where did the sound go? Court TV. Oh, Court TV, come on now. Okay, it looks like Court TV did not get sound with this last bit. So we will.
It was about a month after you had
Oh,
heard him say he wanted to kill
wait.
someone who was going into their
A
understanding.
of his negative, and that she didn't believe.
Okay. Oh, for heaven's sake. Court TV.
Here,
Yes,
what Lori talking about Serena in a way that also disturbed you.
yes.
What do you recall of that?
It was just very negative, and that she didn't believe that Serena was
I didn't even think about that, but ew.
going to be good after all, something to that effect.
Okay. So prior to that meeting, Serena had been at the meeting at
Okay.
Zulema's house,
Yes, just the one.
and she had been on a Zoom meeting maybe?
Yes,
And then this meeting in June, she was
was not.
She was not. And at that point, Lori seemed to be talking negative of her.
correct.
Oh, she didn't want her to join her little cult conspiracy?
When you talked to Lori about these statements that you had heard Alex say and her say on the 9th, did you continue to meet up with Lori after that?
No,
Did Lori ever invite you to any more of these gatherings or prayers?
I was invited one time to go for lunch.
When was that?
I believe August.
So between June and August, you did not receive any other invitations?
No,
Did you at some point learn that Charles had been killed?
yes.
How did you learn that?
I received a text message that he'd been killed.
And who did you think had killed Charles?
Originally, when I received the message, I believed it was a brother-in-law of his. And so it was some time before I realized that Alex had been involved.
So initially, you had said when you met with Lori, that you would go to the police, but when you learned Charles was killed, your understanding was it was someone else.
Correct.
So when you learned it was Alex, what was going through your head then?
I had somebody who had visited with Lori about it and had said that,
Not going into their hearsay. Let me just
Okay.
ask you this. Had you spoken to someone who was passing along information to you of what they understood had happened?
yes,
Okay. The shooting of Charles by Alex was about a month after you had heard him say he wanted to kill Charles, correct?
yes,
Did you feel like after you confronted Lori that she distanced herself from you?
yes,
Did that seem to be the same as what you heard and saw happening with Serena?
I don't know.
Okay. On the 9th, you had heard Lori talking negative about Serena, correct?
Yes.
And she hadn't been invited to that meeting.
She lived out of state, so it wasn't surprised that she wasn't invited.
Had she flown in for a previous meeting, though?
Yes,
So,
just the one.
Okay, ma'am, on the witness stand, I'm going to need you to extrapolate, information from context clues. You showed disgust and you questioned Lori's authority, so you weren't invited. So would you maybe infer that the fact that Lori was speaking negatively about, this other woman means that she directly challenged some of the things that Lori was saying? Again, it's conjecture, it's speculation, but any woman who's been, friends with another woman is going to know that, yeah, that's how this, social isolation happens. You stand up to the queen bee, to the Regina George, and she will socially isolate you and tell, negative stories and, paint herself out as the victim. This is not uncommon in everyday, female kind of hierarchical sort of situations. The way women tend to fight with each other is by, social and reputation assassination rather than fisticuffs. So this is not, something that you need to act shocked about, ma'am.
The initial one.
in terms of your interactions with Lori, did she ever tell you that she was joking about her husband being possessed?
No,
Did she ever tell you she was joking about him having this dark spirit inhabiting him?
no,
And did she ever, you told us that she told you there was a name for this spirit that you don't recall now, correct?
Yes.
Did she ever tell you she was joking about that?
no.
No other questions? Thank you.
All right, Cross.
No questions, Your Honor.
Are there any questions for this witness from the jury? Not seeing any. Ma'am, you can step down.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we are on to page 2, or day 2. All right, day 4, I mean. You know what I mean. Y'all know what I mean. Ooh, outside the jury's presence, what the hell is Lori going to babble about now?
All right, we're on the record, State of Arizona versus Lori Daybell, CR 2021-001704. For planning purposes, Judge Kemp, who does his morning calendar in this courtroom, is dark on Monday and Tuesday. Do the parties, council, advisory council, does anyone have an issue starting at 10 a.m. on Monday and Tuesday?
No, Your Honor.
Advisory council?
Monday and Tuesday at just 10?
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so for advising your witnesses, we'll plan on starting at 10 a.m. on Monday and Tuesday. Is there anything we need to discuss before the jury comes in?
Not that I'm aware of, Your Honor.
All right. Do you want to? All right, we're ready for the jury.
Oh, Lori, what is ChatGPT telling you? How to not ask leading questions?
While we're waiting for those jurors, can I have everyone come up to the bench? And I just want to discuss on the record potential scheduling for the second trial.
All right, they're just talking about scheduling. Ooh, it's the brother. So this is going to be really interesting. We only, for Legal Shenanigans Theater, watched the Lori grills her brother about enchiladas part. So it will be interesting to see sort of the other background information that's elicited on State Direct.
Sir, would you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Adam Cox.
How old are you, Adam?
I just turned 56.
And what do you currently do for a living or for life?
I'm a pro pickleball player and instructor.
Where are you living now? Just what state?
I live in Arizona.
Back in July of 2019.
I know I'm making this face, and as someone who has a semi-profitable but wanting to become a business YouTuber, I guess I really can't throw stones at, whatever job one is going to have, and especially if it's an odd job. But I didn't know that there were professional pickleball players. That's a tongue twister. But it makes sense given that it's a popular game and people are getting really into it. I just didn't think that anyone was a coach at it, or I don't know. I'm not an outdoor sports kind of gal, so I guess it makes sense that there would be coaches in a sport.
19, where were you living?
Wichita, Kansas.
Prior to your pickleball career, did you have a different career?
I did.
What was that?
I was a radio morning show host.
Okay. Is that why you were in Wichita?
Yes.
Did that make you travel a lot?
Yes.
So I want to talk to you about your family first, okay?
Okay.
Where did you grow up?
Grew up in Southern California.
Okay. Do you have any siblings?
Yes.
How many?
5. Or
And-
4 siblings.
Can you tell us the names of the 5 siblings you had growing up?
Stacy, Alex, Lori, and Summer.
For Alex, did people refer to him as Al sometimes?
Yes.
And for Summer, did people call her Sum?
Yes.
Were your sisters Lori and Summer close?
Yes.
I want to ask you about another family member. Back in 2019, Melanie Boudreau. How is she related to your family?
Melanie is my oldest sister, Stacy's daughter, so she's my niece.
And was your sister Lori close with Melanie?
Yes.
Do you see your sister Lori in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Can you point her out and tell us what she's wearing?
She's sitting there wearing black blazer.
Your Honor, may the record reflect the witnesses identified the defendant.
It shall.
In July of 2019, was your sister married?
Yes.
Who was she married to?
Charles Vallow.
And so in July of 2019, was your sister known as Lori Vallow?
Yes.
Do you know approximately how long Lori and Charles were married?
I think over 10 years.
Okay. Do you know if your sister, since the passing of Charles, married Chad Daybell?
Yes.
His name is now and forever henceforth shall be Dorkbell. I think that the Lord Jesus, myself, and the U.S. Census and governmental bodies have no problem with that name change. She's a Dorkbell now, and she chose it. Ugh.
Did your sister Lori, have any children from prior marriages before she and Charles got together?
Yes.
And who were those?
Colby and Tylee.
And were they from the same marriage?
No.
By July of 2019, was Colby an adult?
Yes.
Do you have a son? Zach?
Yes.
Did your son Zach ever live with Lori and Charles for a bit?
Yes.
Did he move in there after Colby moved out?
Yes.
In July of 2019, was Lori's other daughter, Tylee, still under the age of 18?
Yes.
Do you know whether or not Charles helped raise Colby and Tylee?
Yes.
Did you know if Charles had any children from prior marriage?
Yes.
Do you know if do you know how many children he had from a prior marriage?
I think two.
Okay. And do you know if either of those two children live?
And those two sons got their father stolen away. Lori took, I guess Charles had a collection of really nice watches that he had said, kind of in passing to the boys, if anything ever happens to me, I want you to have, my watches. It wasn't anything, I think, written down, but it was something sort of known throughout the family, known to Lori, that these young men were supposed to get these watches. Well, not only do they learn about their father passing through a text message, she sends them, I don't know, they were fancy dancy watches. I don't know anything about watches, but she basically sent them Casios from like Walmart, like the $8 watches that you buy your youngest children to get them used to wearing a watch and being responsible, but you're not going to pay, anything more than $10 because the likelihood of them losing it is astronomical. So this heifer, again, the Hurricane Lori Daybell, hurricane left just ripples of destruction along so many lives that aren't just Charles and Tylee and JJ and Tammy and, all of these people. These children, the families left behind without answers, with none of this making any sense. The people that, from all walks of life who saw JJ and Tylee's story and hoped that those children would be found safe, that we would, find them, that this crazy mom had just hid them because she was in a crazy cult. Lori's destruction and path of destruction is monumental.
Lived with Lori or Charles?
Visited. I don't know if they ever lived there.
Did Lori and Charles have any kids together?
JJ?
Was JJ adopted? Okay. So did they adopt him together?
Yes.
Okay. So in 2019, did Lori and Charles have just JJ and Tylee as their kids living with them?
Yes.
Did Lori and Charles always live in Arizona?
No.
Where else did you know them to live?
Texas and Hawaii.
Okay. We had talked about your brother Alex, or Al. Were you close with your brother Alex?
Somewhat.
Do you know where Alex was living in July of 2019? What state?
Arizona.
And can you describe your brother Alex's relationship with your sister Lori? Were they close?
Freaking creepy. Look, freaking creeptastic. Let's be real. The brother-boyfriend dichotomy there is, well, razor thin. They almost, you might say, in my speculation, were the same person. That being said, they were uncomfortably close. Like, Al was Lori's ride or die.
I mean, I don't know if close is the word I would use growing up, but
Describe
just
for us.
normal brother-sister relationship, I guess.
As they became adults, did they continue to be close, or what do you recall of their relationship?
Yeah, over the last, I guess 4 or 5 years,
The last 4 or 5 years between them was what?
they were closer, they were close for like a year and a half, is what I remember.
Before this happened?
Yeah, they became oddly close for a while.
Oddly is what
how
we're
about-
calling it.
The relationship between Charles and Alex. Do you recall what that was like?
Just a normal brother-in-law relationship, I guess.
Did you ever know them to do things just the two of them?
No, I don't have any knowledge of that.
Did your family sort of do a lot of
Joe Schmo says this was a tremendous learning experience to watch in person, to be able to watch the jury, watch the trial was fascinating. And yes, the whole Cox family has a weird, oddly close vibe. Okay, I was wondering if it was just me. Again, I watch way too much true crime, so sometimes I see things that aren't there. But yeah, watching the trials in person is something that I hope I can do more of as the kids continue to get older, and maybe I can travel to do some trial watching, and make it kind of a thing once in a while. But it really is interesting to watch people watch the trial and see what they perceive, because I know what I perceive, and it is interesting to see who picks up on some things and who picks up on other things, and then how they gauge different people's personalities. So it is interesting. I do agree that watching trials has definitely been an interesting form of people watching. Even everyone's reactions and how they pick, sides, how they look at, different things, how, you have people that are vehemently anti-Karen and vehemently for Karen. It's just interesting that we can watch the same trial and get so different, a view out of it, depending on what lens you watch these things through.
big family events where everyone might be together?
Yes, yeah,
Birthday meals, holidays.
yes,
Adam, did you grow up a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints?
yes,
And are you still a member of that?
yes,
At some point, was your brother Alex excommunicated?
yes.
Do you recall when that was?
I think he was excommunicated twice. So I'm not sure the dates or when that happened, but when he was,
How does one get excommunicated twice? I mean, if you want to disinvite me to your religious party, I'm not going to try to show up again. Unless you have funeral potatoes, then I might try to sneak in. LDS friends, those funeral potatoes are fire. That being said, I mean, why are you going to go back to a club that already kicked you out, sir?
was an adult.
In 2019, was he still excommunicated to your knowledge?
Yes.
What does that mean to be excommunicated?
It means that you do certain things to where the church, it takes away your membership from the church.
Are you able to go to temple if you're excommunicated?
No.
Is that important?
Going to the church in our faith is important, yes.
Let's talk about your relationship with Charles Vallow. Did you and Charles ever text?
Yes,
Did you and Charles ever talk on the phone?
yes,
When Lori and Charles were married, were you aware that Charles would pay for things for the family, like cell phones
yeah, I heard that there's people in our family that they're on his business cell plan.
or car insurance?
Don't know about car insurance, but
You knew about the cell phones.
yeah,
Did you know what Charles did for a living?
yes.
What was it?
He sold insurance.
Okay. Did you know what kind of insurance?
Lexi, no, this is the case with Charles, and then I'll be going into the Brandon Boudreaux case, and then hopefully I should be able to get them done by the time sentencing. So hopefully getting it on the weekends, since Veilhammer has some things to do. Legal Shenanigans Theater is going to be on hiatus for a little bit, so we'll be trying to speed through this and then get into whatever trials after, Lori. I have no idea. If there's a trial coming up that you'd like me to cover, or one that just recently passed, let me know. The Petty Express will do any trial, although we try to keep our kid ones to a minimum because those suck. They're necessary. These kiddos need to have eyes and their stories need to be told, but they kick me in the left boob.
No, he explained it one time, but he was doing something with school teachers or helping them with their situation.
Okay. Did you know whether or not Charles traveled a lot for work?
Yes,
Was he traveling to other states?
Yes,
And was that sort of throughout his marriage with Lori?
yes,
Okay. Were you aware of whether or not your sister, Lori, worked prior to marrying Charles?
yes.
Do you know what kind of work she did?
She was a hairstylist.
Okay. After she married Charles,
Did she give
continue to work
everyone-
outside the home?
Did you give everyone a baby ponytail and a really bad set of chunky highlights, asking for a friend? Because that seems to be what she's able to do for herself. Now, I know that's old saying, physician, heal thyself. Maybe it's hairdresser, style thyself. I don't know. But, ma'am, whatever you're doing with your hair currently, I think the force is not with you.
At a hair salon?
Yeah.
No, not that I know of.
Was it your understanding Charles worked so she could take care of the children?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah.
So you were unaware of her doing any sort of outside work like she had done prior to being married to him?
Yeah, I don't know any of that.
At some point, did you learn or become aware of the fact that Lori and Charles were having some marital problems?
Yes,
Just yes or no, did you ever talk to Charles about why he and Lori were having marital problems?
yes,
You yourself personally, were you aware of Lori having any beliefs that were outside of what is accepted by the LDS religion?
yes.
Can you tell us what you were aware of that you knew to be outside the LDS religion?
Lori told me that she was in the process of translating from a mortal human being to an immortal human being, a celestial state.
That's something that the LDS religion supports?
I haven't heard of it and that it's happened here on Earth yet.
Did you ever hear?
So on Earth yet, so do we think it's going to be happening fairly soon? Is there precedence for this being a possibility? I guess that's my question. Again, I'll have to research more deeply into this because it is fascinating to me. How was there a history, or is this an expectation that at some point this is a possibility for regular mortals to translate to a celestial state? So this is not something that's completely out of left field, but her claiming that she's the one to do it is where she's wrong. I am so confused. Okay, so Joe Schmo is saying this is tied to LDS beliefs about the second coming. Okay, well, thank you. Because honestly, it's a whole different vocabulary and I'm trying to give it respect, but it is a little bit kind of just anathema to me. And thank you, Unhung Hero, for gifting 5 memberships. And those went to Hey Joe, Kevin Sheely, Philip Kraft, Poppy, and Eon Dobb. So welcome, and to the Church of Mo, we have dark chocolate, sarcasm, and a healthy dose of true crime. So welcome, welcome, and thank you, Unhung, for that. And I am going to get back to musings, I promise. I am feeling almost human after the, Denmarkian flu. So all things are pointing to musings being good. So, again, as I have pointed out only a bazillion and 10 times, so LDS Church, do not come after me. Every, Mormon or person of the LDS faith that I've met has been a good person just trying to human the best they can in this crazy world. But when you're not raised in a faith, there are sort of intricacies and vocabulary and kind of definitions for things that you're just not kind of privy to, and it's not maybe in your sort of vocabulary. So I'm trying to marry it to things that are in Catholicism that I kind of learned in catechism, but I understand that there's not generally those linkages. So thank you for explaining that, Joe Schmo. Okay, so it's like someone becoming, or Jesus coming back, I guess. I'll have to look it up. I'm sure there's something more doctrinal about it, but it makes sense if this is something that, because I had wondered if Chad just kind of out of whole cloth made these crazy ideas, or if he was building upon and then completely taking out of left field sort of things that are kind of have a kernel of truth in, let's say, LDS doctrine, but then he just took it to, like, Spinal Tap 13 with it. So it does make more sense that he probably got people with having a kernel of sort of doctrinal, scriptural, basis for things, and then went.
Hear her talking about being married to someone that is relevant in your religion.
Yes, I have heard that.
Did she tell that to you?
I don't know. I can't recall her telling me that, but I remember other people telling me.
And Joe Schmo again, it's loosely tied to the second coming. Translated means you've become an eternal, perfected being on this earth without having to wait for the second coming. Yeah, although I will say Michelle Pfeiffer is still hot. But I was more in love with Sandy's cousin, who I think might not actually be batting for Team Girl. That being said, he had a British accent and he was attractive. But again, I think he and I were looking for the same kind of guys. Allegedly in Minecraft, I don't remember. Grease 2 has been a couple years since I've seen it. And my mom's the one that knows the Insider Edition, hard copy, background story for every actor. And I really don't think I should call her like, hey, Mom, on Grease 2, was the main lead actor guy gay? She might wonder why I'm calling her just to ask her for that.
Tell me that.
Okay. Was there anything else that you recall her telling you that she believed that seemed outside the LDS religion?
Yes.
She's a mimeographed copy, which means that she's not as good as the original, and she's got typos and mistakes. But yeah, I don't know that a translated being should be able to get the coof. Lori, you should have thought that one through. Maybe it's a struggle to prove your translationness.
There was a time where she told me that she had more priesthood authority than the priesthood.
And why, can you explain for us what that means, why that was significant to you?
In our religion,
Now, I do know that the priesthood is solely the sort of realm of men, at least for right now in the LDS church. But I do know, one of the things I do know is that priesthoods or any sort of higher sort of religious rank is only preserved for men right now. So Lori saying that she has more priesthood authority than actually the priesthood in the Mormon faith would be a very big, very kind of transgressive thing for them. They haven't extended the priesthood to women. I believe they just extended the priesthood to people with melanated skin. It was kind of a big scandal, but I do believe that that has been a recent change. Again, don't quote me on that. In recent, I mean, I think in the 90s.
the men hold the priesthood, and she said that she's in a state where she's above that.
Okay.
I didn't quite understand it, but very strange.
Did you confront her about these beliefs?
Confront her? No.
Did you discuss with her about these beliefs?
I just let her say what she wanted to say.
Was there ever a conversation where, when she was telling you these things, where she asked if you thought she was crazy?
Yes.
And how did you respond to that?
I said, I don't know if you're crazy, but what you're telling me is not true. It's not real.
After you said that, what happened to your relationship with Lori?
She stopped talking to me.
Okay. Were you ever aware of Lori believing that people could be dark or possessed by evil spirits?
I later have learned that, yes.
Did you ever try to tell your family about the beliefs that Lori had expressed to you?
Yes.
What was your family's reaction?
One of the reaction was, she's in a delusion, let her do whatever she's doing and she'll come out of it at some point.
How did this impact your relationship with your family?
Yes, because delusional people generally come out of their delusions all by their own selves without, any sort of collateral damage, be that, with their family, friends, or let's say the law. I mean, I get it, but do you really want to argue with Lori? Not really.
When you're bringing up these concerns about Lori?
They basically cut me off.
So you bringing up your concerns about Lori's beliefs being at odds with the LDS religion sort of terminated your good relationship with your family?
Yes.
Sir, this is a blessing. Your family is obviously cray to the cray. Take this as a sign from the Lord above to move to Guam, start your own pickleball institution, and never contact those crazies again. Because if you trying to point out that your sister is showing clear signs of delusions, and they're like, yeah, he's just negative all the time, and we're not going to put him on the family group chat. I know. I'd be like, how did I land this perfect punishment, and would you promise not to talk to me again? Like, promise? Pinky promise? How many more bad things about Lori do I have to say? Because I would like a whole 10 years away from you people.
At the end of June of 2019, do you recall Charles sending you some emails that were purportedly written by him asking Chad Daybell to come out to Arizona and write a book for him?
Yes.
And did you, without going into it, did you review that email?
Yes.
Did you know Charles, what he had done in his life prior to selling insurance?
Yeah, I know that he played minor league baseball.
And in this email was the person pretending to be Charles asking about writing a book about his career?
Yes.
Was that something you knew Charles was not interested in?
No, he's not, or wasn't.
After you saw those emails that Charles had forwarded to you, where someone was reaching out to Chad, were they inviting Chad out to Arizona?
Yes.
After reading that and getting that forward and talking with
Lori, you absolute muppet. First of all, Chad writes fiction, not autobiography, not ghost stories, not even like, let's just say, a sort of fictionalized story based on anything but his weird sort of whatever's delusions. So he wouldn't be the author that you would get to write a semi-autobiographical story. In fact, having read his text messages, and I'm sure I will find his books at one point and we will read them together, confused as all hell, because, I barely got through the Left Behind first book. I can only imagine how I'm going to get how hard it is to read, the Mormon Left Behind series by Chad Daybell. But he doesn't have a grasp on how to write anything of substance. So I'm guessing Charles, who doesn't want to talk about his life like that, isn't, if he wanted to write a fictionalized story, isn't going to get Chad Daybell to write it. Who would? Other than Lori.
with Charles, did you believe that Lori was having an affair with Chad Daybell?
Yes.
Did you and Charles spend time talking about that?
Yes.
Was he kind of, I guess, in a tailspin? I'm not sure the best words to say from learning that.
Yeah, he seemed a little desperate.
Did Charles have some idea on how he thought he might be able to get Lori back into the LDS faith?
Yes.
What did you understand that to be?
Charles just thought that Lori was going overboard and that she was going to the temple like 5 times a week, and that's not normal in our religion, and that she was going a little off the wall. So he figured that if she got her temple recommend taken away from her, that she would come back to normal, who she was before she started in all this things that she was believing.
Now, you told us that you had heard yourself some ideas by Lori that were outside the LDS religion. Did Charles also tell you about other things that she had told him?
Yes.
Okay. And so did
And the sad thing is that I do believe that Charles converted to the LDS faith. I do believe he had been Catholic prior to this, but in order to, continue with his relationship with Lori and I believe get married, it was important for Lori, for Charles to have her same faith and same, value set. And he was willing to do that, to be involved with Lori, to be, a part of their lives and, be on yoked equally, I guess, to each other. So the fact that someone outside of the faith is questioning her being born in the faith, I'm sure that she felt that Charles didn't have the authority to go up kind of over her head, in and above her being a delusional, transmutated being. I am sure it pissed her off royally that Charles, sort of a person who she shepherded into this, faith, value system, was trying to get her access to the temple taken away. I'm sure she would have seen that as a great affront to both her kind of spiritual authority as a transmogrified being, but also as the person who kind of was sort of the, teacher, the leader, and the shepherd of, Charles into this faith. So I think it probably knocked her confidence and pissed her off on multiple levels beyond being a crazy heifer.
did you talk with Charles about something that we'll term an intervention?
Yes.
What did you mean by an intervention?
Intervention means Charles he's kind of desperate because nobody in our family would talk to him. I'm sure that, Lori had told people in our family not to talk to him. So he thought that, having an intervention would be getting in front of her, recording her, giving it to the stake president, or having the stake president hear what she was talking about and hear the crazy things that she was saying.
So the intervention was part of the way to try to get her to come back to the mainstream LDS beliefs.
Yes.
Did Charles ask you to help him with this intervention?
Yes, he did.
Did you guys have a specific plan, like on X date at X time, we're going to do this?
No.
Had you talked to Charles about potentially going to Lori's and recording her on your phone?
Yes.
Did you talk to Charles and text him about another idea of having a family dinner and again, recording her so that you could play that for the stake president?
Yes.
We're using a term there, stake president. Who is that? What is that in your religion?
Well, in our religion, we have our churches organized where we have wards, and then a bigger, like 4 or 5 wards are in a stake, and then there's a president of the stake, and so it's somebody who's in charge of everybody in the stake.
Okay. So someone that's pretty high up in the church.
Yes, yeah.
And so the idea was to,
Okay, so do the wards have their own priest, or is every man determined to be like the priest head of his own family, and then it goes, you have like a couple of families do a church thing? I am so confused. That being said, Catholicism is all the crazy. You have, cardinal sins and venial sins and indulgences. So I come from a faith background that you need Latin and history to, get. So I'm not trying to knock it. I'm just trying to understand. Is it like a home church? And then I'm confused. Not as confused as Lori, but that's not saying a whole bunch. Awesome. Thank you, Joe Schmo. I will take you up on that because, again, it's not to be derogatory, but it's just, I'm like, do what in the what now? He is doing a pretty good job of explaining things. So I can't say that he's, being like super secret or anything like that, but it is sort of a different kind of, it's a different kind of organization than I'm used to. Lexi says, think of it like this. The church is to a city as a stake is to a country. Okay, so it's like having a mayor and a governor. Okay, mayor and governor makes sense to me. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time with this.
bring any of these recordings to show she's saying these things to his attention?
Yes.
And again, the point of that whole was to just try to take away her temple recommend.
Yes.
So on July 9th of 2019, did Charles talk to you about him flying you out so that you can help him with this intervention?
Yes, he did.
And did he offer to purchase your flight
Yes.
to bring you to Arizona?
Yes.
At that time, did your parents live here in Arizona?
Yes, they did.
At that time, was Lori here in Arizona?
Yes, she was.
And you told us your brother Alex was living here as well at that time?
Yes.
Was your sister Summer also living here at that time?
Yes.
And after Charles purchased your tickets, did you reach out to anyone in your family to ask if you could stay with them?
Yes.
Who did you reach out to?
Alex, my brother.
And did he offer to let you stay with him?
Yes, he did.
Okay, Adam, make this make sense to me. Your entire family will not listen as Lori spews Delulu. You are going to come to basically ambush Lori with the distinct knowledge that your family either doesn't care or it agrees with Lori, or Lori has been able to manipulate them to where they don't see or excuse her crazy. So you decide to bunk down with boyfriend brother? Make this make sense. Make any of this make sense. For $88, you could have stayed at a Motel 6 and not had to stay with your crazy weirdo brother. I mean, look, $88 is a lot of money, but sleeping without crazy sleeping next to you is great. It's priceless.
Were you supposed to fly in on the next day, July 10th?
Yes.
So your understanding was when you flew in on the 10th, you'd reach out to Alex and you'd spend the night there.
Yes.
Did you end up staying with him?
No, I did not.
So when you landed in Phoenix on July 10th of 2019, do you recall what time of the day it was approximately?
Sometime around lunch.
Okay. And did you reach out to Alex?
Yes, I texted him as soon as I landed.
Did you get a text response back?
No, I did not.
Was that unusual?
Yes.
So he's expecting you, right?
Yes.
Did you try calling him?
Yes, I did.
Did he answer your phone?
No, he did not.
Again, was that unusual to you?
Yes.
Did you think anything was odd at that time?
Yeah, at first I was like, he can't be that busy. He knows I'm coming.
Did Alex ever respond to you on the 10th?
No.
So he ghosted you.
Yes.
What did you think when you didn't hear back from Alex?
I just thought it was very strange and bizarre.
Okay. So you were supposed.
Sir, did you not see this coming from 8 miles away, not being Miss Cleo and having no crystal ball? I could have seen that, boyfriend brother was going to not appreciate you trying to do an intervention. If she's already, sending out fake emails, I'm sure she's cloned his, text accounts and knows all about this, intervention. So your confusion as to the two people in your family and your entire family writ large, being, willing to condone and co-sign her craziness, your confusion about this is confusing me. Like, I would, again, have had a hotel room. My family is not going to be allies in this. They cut you off from communication when you tried to bring up the fact that these are, completely blasphemous thoughts. And you're shocked that the family turned on you when you were going to go through with this intervention. I feel like, have you been watching the same movie we have, sir?
Supposed to be staying at Alex's when you talked to him on the 9th. Did Alex ever text you between when you guys talked and when you landed saying, I'm going to go stay at Lori's?
No.
Did Alex ever call or text you and tell you, I can't have you stay with me? I know I initially said okay, but not anymore.
No.
So he just ignored you.
Yes.
Where'd you end up staying?
My mom and dad's house.
Okay. On July 10th, did you understand Charles was also flying into Phoenix?
Yes.
Did you see Charles on the 10th?
No, I did not.
Did you see your sister Lori on the 10th?
No, I did not.
So you told us you stayed with your parents. What did you do on the 10th?
They picked me up and we went to lunch. And then we just, I think, hung out at the house.
You said your son Zach lived here at the time?
Yes.
Who was he living with at that time?
I think he was living with my mom and dad.
Okay. So although you didn't talk with Charles on the 10th, did you have an understanding of what he was going to do the morning of the 11th?
Yes.
What was that?
He was going to go pick up JJ, his son. It was his turn to, I guess, have him for a few days or whatever.
Were Charles and JJ really close?
Yes.
So the morning of July 11th, you were not expecting to get together with Charles at 7 in the morning, right?
No.
Did you get a text message from Charles?
Yes, I did.
And did you learn where Alex was?
Yes, I did.
Where did you learn Alex was?
Alex was at Lori's house.
When you learned this, was Charles texting you sort of in real time as he is coming to the house,
Yes.
explaining to you what he's seeing and what's going on?
Yes.
And are you responding back to him?
Yes.
So you're at your mom and dad's house when you start getting these text messages from Charles?
Yes.
When you learned that Alex was at your sister's, what were you thinking?
I just thought something weird is happening because he never answered my text the whole day I was there, never returned a call. And then all of a sudden he said he's at Lori's house. And I didn't even know what to think at that point. I thought something was off.
So immediately you knew something was off.
Yeah.
From the prior day where Alex ghosted you to now he's at your sister's that morning when Charles was going over to pick up JJ.
Yes.
Were you concerned that Alex was at your sister's house?
A little concerning. Yes.
Have you seen,
And what strikes me as so incredibly sad about this is that Charles Vallow was not a small man. He was probably used to not being intimidated, and he probably had no idea to the depths to which Lori wanted him gone and was willing to do whatever she had to get a hand on his money. I'm sure that he went into this situation, okay, Alex is there, there's going to be drama, but I'm sure he figured it was nothing he couldn't handle. And this is such a sad reality that unfortunately, you can be physically fit, you can be imposing, and if concentrated, crazy, delusional evil sets their sights on you, you can be the strongest, fastest, tallest, person, but you might not have the upper hand. And I always found this incredibly sad about this because, as a female, as a woman, if I'm realizing that I'm going into a dangerous situation, I'll probably call it off and go to a public place where I know I have backup or, suggest custody, exchanges at a police station. Charles probably thought that he could handle whatever crazy Lori dished out. And unfortunately, he couldn't because he didn't realize, again, the depths to which she wanted to destroy him. I don't know if that's because he was trying to take away her temple recommend or she just wanted his money. And he did probably think he had a little bit of safety that she wouldn't do anything in front of the children. I mean, again, he probably had all of these sort of things taking off in his head. I can handle this, because of this, this, and this. She won't do anything too crazy. And that's always struck me as incredibly sad, is that he probably went in there thinking, it's going to be another stupid Lori S show, but we'll get out of there and JJ and I will have fun after it. I'll have to walk through this BS, but then it'll be okay.
text messages that you and your brother-in-law Charles had sort of making the flight reservations and leading up to the morning of the 11th?
Yes.
And were those all messages that you two had as you're trying to figure out how to have this intervention?
Yes.
And then ultimately, what you are seeing and saying that morning at 7:30 in the morning?
Yes.
And I've shown defendant Exhibit 210, if I can have our paralegal approach with that. Adam, if you can take a look at those and let me know if you recognize those as text messages that you had with Charles, sort of the 9th, 10th, and 11th, as you are interacting leading up to that morning and including the morning of the 11th.
Yes.
Your Honor, the state will move to admit Exhibit 210 pursuant to 8031 as present sense impressions.
Yes, Your Honor, we object in lieu of that is a report and not the full extraction.
All right, well, may I see that particular objection wouldn't prohibit admission, it would go toward weight, but give me a second here.
Okay, gotta love this judge because I do like that, this judge, even though Lori's, objection is completely redonkulous, he is at least, looking at things and making sure that everything is good. And Atheist Ant, thank you for the super chat. No, my natural color is probably the lighter color in Lori Vallow's hair. So the lighter color that she bleaches her streaks to be is actually the color my hair is. This is my darker, not natural color. It kills my mom. My mom has looked at me with such like, do you know how much money I pay to get my hair blonde and you ruin your blonde hair? So yes, it has been a constant source of sadness for my mother that I have beautiful blonde hair that I dye dark. And as all good things, my red hair started with, something that bothered my mom and just, became my own thing. But it did start out as a juvenile rebellion against my mother in my early 20s. And then I just kind of stuck with it. And now I have wigs. So I've sent my mother pictures in my blonde wig to, really show her that, yes, this is what I could look like if I kept, my natural color. Joe Schmo, Judge B drives a really cool old convertible. I saw him leaving the garage one day with the top down and and shades on. Really cool judge in the courtroom and out. Yeah, he seems like a laid-back judge, though his facial expression has been my spirit animal because he is so done with her most days. I love it. And he needs a convertible. She just gets sad because she spends money to make her hair blonde and I spend my money to make my hair dark. No, I don't think it's me either. When I do blonde highlights or anything, I just get confused, but it's fun to play with your hair. I don't have any tattoos, so I just, play with my hair color and wigs.
And if I may publish it, then, Your Honor. If I can have the elbow, thank you. Adam, I'm going to start sort of going back to, in Exhibit 210, the conversations that you and Charles were having as you're trying to come up with a way to have this intervention.
No, Mr. Mo likes me with darker hair. He didn't realize that I was blonde when we first started going out because, somewhere in the red-brown family has been my hair color for the past, I think, 15 years. So one time I went back to my natural color and he's like, eh. And I was like, eh. So Sometimes during summers, I'll put blonde highlights in just to keep me from having to dye it all the time. But I generally prefer my hair darker, and it's going to lighten up considerably. I'm what you call a glassy blonde. So my hair doesn't hold on to color as well as some others, but it does hold on to red extremely well. So I just found my reds and stuck there. It's fun to change your hair color, at least for me. Keeps me off the streets and selling LuLaRoe. So, all in all, not a weird thing to do.
All right. So you learned that Charles was reaching out. Well, let me ask you this. You had learned from Charles about this fictitious email, correct?
Yes.
Did you learn that Charles had reached out to Lori about it?
One more time?
Did you learn that Charles had reached out to Lori about this email?
Yes.
Did you learn that he had reached out to Chad Daybell's wife about it?
I think I remember that.
These are text messages. Were you also receiving emails from Charles?
Yes.
Does this sort of array of messages start to involve where you and Charles are talking about having you come out to Arizona to help with this intervention?
Yes.
And so do we see,
If you want to try out a red, they have these color tinting conditioners that will put a little bit of a red in there, and you can see if you like it, but you can also take it out with clarifying shampoo if you want to. I just didn't know that anyone could be a pro at that. Are there like NFLs or NHL? Is there like a National Pickleball League? Super Bowl? I don't know. Again, hey, good work if you can find it. I guess if you really like pickleball, being outside and being active, it just doesn't look like my jam. Oh, like a golf pro. Oh, okay. That makes more sense. So like if there's a pickleball park, then he might be on retainer to help newbies and you can get like lessons and stuff. Okay. Yes, atheist, and this is the Charles Vallow of the Lori Vallow trials. And then after this one is done, we'll go to the Brandon Boudreaux one, and then hopefully watch her being sentenced to a gajillion more life sentences as a transmogrified, human being on Earth. A transmogrification person on Earth.
on the 9th, you letting him know that you could fly out tomorrow and come home Saturday or Sunday?
Yes.
Do we see, as you continued on, he tells you that he could fly you in on Southwest, and he's telling you he's just right now landing in LA, right?
Yes.
And you knew he traveled a lot for work.
Yes.
When we get to the 9th at 9:11 a.m., did you get a message from Charles about how you were going to get everyone together without Lori knowing that you're going to have this intervention?
Yes.
And is that one of the ideas where you indicated that I'll go see Lori at her house and have a talk with her and keep your phone on record?
Yes.
So that was sort of one idea of a potential way to show the stake president that she was having these ideas outside the LDS faith?
Yes.
Does Charles kind of tell you he's not sure that that's really going to work?
Yeah.
He says, I think she'll leave, but it's worth a try.
Yeah.
Did you then suggest also have a family dinner with everyone? And then say, always leave my phone on to record what I say and what everyone else says?
Yes.
And then you go on to say that's to have proof for Holmes. Who's Holmes?
President Holmes. He was our stake president, or their stake president.
You were in Wichita, but he was the stake president here.
I lived here before, and he was in my ward, so I know him.
So when you're talking about the stake president, Holmes is who it actually is?
Yes.
Okay. On the 9th, does Charles tell you that, got it, but honestly, if you, Zach, Brandon, and me go to him, that should be enough She will feel like we ambushed her, but something has to be done. She'll be real careful what she says. Had you brought Brandon into this yet? Like, did you have a plan to have him come with you?
No, but Brandon played basketball with us on that night. So me and Zach and Brandon played basketball where President Holmes played basketball at a church. So that was that reference.
Okay. So you thought if we go to the church, Brandon will be there and he can help you
Yeah,
talk about
say
this.
that, yeah.
Okay. But Brandon's not part of this conversation right here, right?
No,
Then does it kind of go back to Charles asking for your information so he can make your flight reservations?
yes,
Okay. Then at 1:13 PM, does Charles let you know that your flights are booked and that he emailed that to you? Mm-hmm. And then does he go on to say, I'm really uneasy about how she will respond, not only to you, but to me and Zach and Brandon? Right?
yes.
In talking with Charles and this intervention, was there a constant concern of how she would respond to trying to take away her temple recommend?
Yes,
Was some of that based upon your understanding of the things she had said to Charles in the past?
that and others. Apparently Lori was flighty. When Charles tried to serve her divorce papers, she disappeared and nobody knew where she was. So in Charles's mind that she could be flighty and just take off again where nobody would know where she is. So there was some definite reference to that as well.
Okay.
Is everyone overlooking the fact that if Charles had just cut off her ability to pay for things, she would have found her way home quick, fast, and in a hurry? I mean, again, I want to go nuclear on her because of everything I know that she's going to do, to Charles and everyone. So I would have cut her off and said, okay, heifer, you don't want to be married. You think I'm evil? Well, look how evil I am. Here's our joint accounts and you're off of them. Here's our, joint accounts and all the money's back where I'm earning it from, my job that's keeping your boyfriend brother in the house that I rented. That being said, I didn't have to live with Lori. I was never in love with Lori. And, I don't have those sort of ties that are more emotional. I would be okay and happy to see Lori pissed off. In fact, it would kind of make my day. So I understand the, absolute fear of when you are in a relationship with someone who is manipulative, who is controlling, who has torn your self-esteem down, who has torn your psyche down with just their absolute inability to be predictable, to have shifted the goalpost, to have changed so dramatically from the person that you met. So I get that Charles has a lot of fears that I wouldn't have, and I would tell Lori to go pound sand and screw Chad Dorkbell and see how much money that gets her. So I do understand that there are ties that bind that make, my general flippant nature, an impossibility when you're in the situation for real.
Then it goes on to say, I'll pick up JJ and take him to school. So you knew what he was
Only-
doing that next morning, right?
Yes,
And you said she'll be there,
This
right?
heifer
Friday the same.
complained.
So you knew his idea was he was going to be with his son in the mornings, Thursday and Friday.
yes,
And then you said she'll be highly suspicious about recording. If you can bring a second device and put your phone on the counter or turn it off, it might help. Is that sort of the same idea that he was unsure that she would trust you showing up there and trying to ask her about those things?
yes. This was all just it seemed like Charles was just desperate and he wanted to do anything he could to this last ditch effort to try to shake Lori loose of whatever she was under, some spell that he said. So, that's basically what happened.
And then does he go on again to talk about that he really thinks the only thing that's going to break her out of this is going to Holmes,
Yeah, yes,
and that she's hurting too many families and that he's upset his is gone?
yes,
Does he say that he still loves her?
yes,
And does he think that she's basically potentially gone forever?
yes,
And then we see that he corrected slots to Lori, right?
yes,
Typo.
yes. Lots of typos.
On July 10th at 3:34, do you get a text from Charles asking if you're in Phoenix?
Yes.
And do you respond, yes, you're going to Summers, and that you'll call him?
Yes.
And then does Charles let you know he's got a meeting, but he'll try to call you before he goes to see Lo? Who is Lo?
Lo is Lori.
So people would call her Lo or Lolo?
Yes.
Or Lou or Delulu? How many nicknames does this family collectively have? Because you had Al for Alex, you had Sum for Summer, you had Lolo and Lo for Lori. Okay, I guess we just don't like our given names in this family.
Do you remember if you talked to Charles on the 10th?
On the 10th, what day was that?
The day before, so when you flew in, did you ever talk to Charles?
No, I don't remember talking to him then.
So even though you guys had attempted to call, you don't recall if you ever spoke with him that
She
evening or
resembles that
afternoon?
remark.
Right.
So at this point, you'd said you went to Summers in the text messages, and then later you stayed at your parents' for the night.
Yes.
And then you knew that Charles would be going to pick up his son the next morning. Did you assume that you and Charles would meet up or talk sometimes later that day?
I figured so.
Okay, but you had no scheduled timeline for
Nothing
that?
planned.
Okay. So next in Exhibit 210, we see text messages from July 11th of 2019 at 7:35 a.m., where Charles texted you, "Al is here." And then just a couple seconds later, he said, "At Lori's." Was this shocking to you?
Yes.
And what did you respond back? Did you say, "Really, I wonder why he never called me back"?
Yes.
And then we see that you wrote at 7:36 and 28 seconds, "They are planning something." Why did you write that?
Because Alex not answering his phone the whole day and me calling him and texting him, not knowing where he's at. Nobody in my family said they heard from him or knew where he was. All that is very suspicious to me. And then Alex being at Lori's house that morning felt like something was really off.
So when you told Charles,
And if there is one thing I could share with the outside world and, things I've learned myself over my, well, let's say certain years on this planet, is those gut feelings that something is really not right, that this is wrong, whether you get them from a person or a situation, trust those. We're the only animal in existence that ignores our instincts. And I wish, again, hindsight being 2020, we all know how crazy Lori was and Alex was. But I wish we would pay more attention to those signals that our intuition, our gut is giving, to us about when things are off. And I know we want to rationalize things. We want to, try to, say, okay, well, maybe I'm interpreting this wrong. But sometimes our gut feeling is there for a reason.
they're planning something, Charles responded back, "Absolutely." Did you then let him know that you were supposed to spend the night at Alex's house? She probably blocked that.
Yes.
Did Charles respond to you, "What you do is up to you"?
Yes.
So were you kind of upset at your brother for telling you you could stay with him and then ghosting you, ignoring you?
Yes.
Were you upset at him for being at Lori's house when Charles was going there just to pick up JJ?
Yes.
Did you then text him, "I'm going to put the pressure on to have him come get me right now, see what he says"?
Yes.
Did you in fact text your brother?
Yes.
Did he respond back?
No.
As we're going along here, we see that each of these are being read sort of in this short period of time, these couple minutes that Charles is here as he's driving in. After you texted him about putting the pressure,
Atheist and no, Tylee was a result of Lori's marriage to Jake Ryan. And Jake Ryan was Tylee's father. And I believe Tylee had just learned that he had passed. I want to say maybe a year to 18 months prior to her passing away or her being murdered. So now there were allegations Joe Ryan. Jake Ryan is from 16 Candles, and I still have a crush on him. Joe Ryan. Now, there have been allegations upon the breakup of that marriage that from Colby, Lori's son from another marriage, that Joe Ryan was inappropriate with him. Now, none of the sort of allegations ever had any factual basis from them, but there were allegations that there were some things that went on with, Joe Ryan and Colby. Again, none of that was ever, verified. That was looked into extensively when they were having custody issues, and none of those stories ever happened to come out to any fruition. Now, I do know that there was a bit of a relook at his death once this all came out, because he had been found passed away, and with everyone around Lori who had ever crossed Lori ending up dead. But he was found in an advanced state of decomposition, so there was never any evidence to link Lori to his untimely passing. Now, Alex was convicted of using a stun gun on Joe Ryan, I believe, as he was leaving court during this custody battle. Again, when I say that Alex was willing to become a felon for his sister, he in fact got a felony assault or battery charge when he tased and laid hands on him in the courtyard or court parking lot. And yeah, absolutely. I'm just letting you know that as far as the police were concerned and the investigative bodies, there weren't any substantiations of the allegations. But there's not always that when these things happen. So for my legal safety, it's more that they weren't substantiated. But again, I wasn't there and I have no further knowledge other than that. So Alex did, in fact, become a felon. And I think he does some stand-up comedy about that, where he talks about becoming a felon for his sister, and that he beat his sister's ex up. So there is a whole background in Lori's life of, her not being able to stay in a marriage. And then her kind of going from marriage to marriage to marriage. And again, not having any good relationship with the previous partner. Make of that what you will.
Texted Charles about putting the pressure on to have him come get me right now. Did you then say okay to Charles?
Yes.
And then we see again that at 7:49:34 a.m., you texted Charles, "Me and Zach are going to the stake center tonight at 8 to play basketball. Holmes is always there, either playing ball or interviewing people. I will try to catch him and have a conversation with my old friend."
Yes.
What was that about?
That was just part of the plan that Charles initially came up with to somehow get in front of the stake president. So that night, he's the stake president. He interviews people for Temple Recommends and also plays basketball afterwards. So that was just a thought of maybe this could be something that we could do to help with that situation.
Okay. Now, up until 7:37 you had been interacting with Charles, right? You would respond and you were getting some text messages back from him.
Yes.
We see after 7:37 where he texts you, "What you do is up to you," that he didn't respond back to any of your other comments, right?
Right.
So when you sent him at 7:37 and 29 seconds that you're going to put the pressure on him, you meant Al?
Yes, Alex.
To come get you, Charles didn't respond to that?
No.
And in fact, it shows that that message was read at 12:13 p.m. versus the earlier messages that were read sort of right in time? Is that yes?
Yes.
And when you told Charles that you and Zach were going to go to the stake center to play basketball and see if you could find homes, did you get a response from Charles?
No.
And again, we see that that was read at 12:13, correct?
Yes.
Did you go talk with Holmes that night?
I went to go play basketball, but he wasn't there.
Was it just you and Zach?
Yes.
During the day of July 11th, at any time, did
Okay.
you learn that Charles Vallow had been shot?
I'm having a hard time with this whole intervention scenario. All right, now I could be totally wrong, but is it wrong in the LDS faith to go toot 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 toot? Hey, stake President Holmes. Is there a time maybe I could meet you? We're having some pretty significant issues in my family dealing with my sister Lori, and her husband is really concerned. Could we make an appointment? In the immediate future to discuss these things where you're very concerned, rather than, oh, maybe I'll go, meet him when he's playing basketball or when he's interviewing the rest of his congregants. I mean, I would assume if you're a stake president, again, this could be way out of left field or wrong, but you kind of know that you could be on call 24/7 with sort of, crises or families in crisis, faith issues. I mean, could they have just called the man and say, hey, we've got like a bazillion and 12 recordings of Lori saying something deluded. What do you think? I guess it's just the ad hocness. If you know that this is going to come to a negative, Lori has two ways she's going to deal with this. We've seen in the past she runs away or she's going to go ballistic. Wouldn't you want to get in and have an actual defined time and place where you're going to deliver this kind of information to this guy instead of relying on like basketball interviews? Again, sometimes you're not thinking clearly when you're dealing with crazy and delusional, but this whole intervention-y thing just seems like it was poorly thought out, and possibly because they didn't realize, again, the depths to which Lori had manipulated and was willing to go in her pursuit of, well, let's be real, Charles' money.
No.
So Lori did not call you and tell you that Charles had been shot?
No.
Alex didn't call you to tell you that he'd shot your brother-in-law?
No.
Anyone in your family talk to you about it?
Nope.
How about the next day, Friday, July 11th? Did Lori tell you Charles had been shot?
No.
Alex contact you to tell you that he'd shot Charles?
No.
Anyone in your family talk to you about that?
No.
Oh,
Did you?
what? Okay, again, do we need to have a full-on documentary of the crazy exhibited by the Cox family? Because, okay, so your daughter, her husband dies at the hand of your other son. You know full well that the son that's in your house, mom and dad, is a son that was going to have an intervention for said daughter. If this were written as a Hollywood movie, you wouldn't believe it because you wouldn't believe a family could be this crazy. It wouldn't read well on paper. Good night, nurse. And Northwest, I know how awful she treated Charles's son. It just makes me sick thinking about it. I mean, among all the other sins she has, she couldn't have even been a good stepmom, which I don't know why I'm thinking she could be a good anything considering how she did as a mother. But just ugh.
You decide to go visit a friend in Tucson on Saturday the 13th now.
Yes.
What were you going down there for?
Going to see my friend Eric.
And did anyone come with you?
Yes, Zach did, my son.
Okay. When you went down there, did you talk with Eric about what's going on?
Yeah, I just thought it was really fishy that I haven't heard from Charles. And I didn't know if he was.
JJ was actually Kay Woodcock Charles's sister, her son was in a relationship with, I think, someone else. I believe they both had addiction issues. And JJ was born of that relationship. I do believe that Kay and her husband had raised JJ for a little bit, but realized, they were a little older, maybe not as active, and JJ was going to need, I believe they might have known about possible developmental delays. I don't know if they had labeled it as autism yet, but I do know that Charles and Lori decided to adopt JJ because they were more active. But then, Kay could still be in JJ's life, and, he would be in a good situation with a sister and things like that. So it really did start off as this beautiful sort of, inviting a child into their family to love. And at some point, he just became an obstacle and a paycheck for Lori, which is terribly sad. But JJ wasn't hers, no. She adopted him, and it makes it all that much crueler that she just discarded him. I mean, I think there's an extra special bond when you adopt or you choose to love someone, take that child in, and then to betray that is just a higher level of corroditated dumpster human garbage water behavior.
Took JJ and just was having one-on-one time with JJ. I didn't know if Lori and him were getting back together, and Lori told him not to talk to me, or my mind was spinning. Like, I had no clue what was going on.
Had
Do you not have the news?
you talked to any of your family about it? Were you still keeping that intervention thing secret from them? At that point?
No, at that point, but I think my nobody had heard from. I asked if anybody had heard from Alex, and nobody said that they heard from Alex in my family. But at that point, I was there spending time with my son Zach, also to help Charles with what he wanted to try to get an intervention with Lori, and also to see my friend Eric, because I live in Wichita, so I was trying to do 3 things at one time on my short visit.
So on the 11th or 12th, though, were you still keeping that sort of secret that you and Charles had been wanting to do an intervention on Lori?
Yes.
You weren't telling your family, like, I don't know why we're not?
And thank you, Northwest. Okay, I did not know this, but JJ's bio mom has passed, and I'm glad that his bio dad is sober now and getting his life back together. I can't imagine, the guilt and sadness that must come knowing that your, addiction and, things in the past, put your child in what you thought was a safe situation that turned out to be not so safe. And I was unaware of that too, but hopefully Kay is able to stay in their lives, and, there's something for this family to hold on to besides lovely memories, which are great, and I'm sure a blessing and a reminder of the lovely time they had with him, but it doesn't seem like enough.
Not doing this.
Charles asked me not to tell anybody.
And was that actually sort of a message you guys had talked about of who in your family might be, might prevent any type of intervention?
Yes.
And who in your family were you guys concerned with if they learned about the intervention might try to stop it?
Mom and Dad, Summer.
Alex, too?
Alex, yes.
So even though you're here and you're seeing your family and you're seeing your son, you don't want to tell them a lot about Charles because you're trying to still keep that quiet in case he does want to go forward with it.
Exactly, yes.
So you're in Tucson and you start talking to your friend about Charles.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So the half sister is not on Kay's side. The half sister was with the bio mom. Okay. Well, this is hateful to say. I'm glad Lori didn't get her hands on that little girl. Actually, it's not hateful to say. It's just a blessing that that little girl didn't know the evil that was Lori.
You learn at some point that Charles has been killed?
Yes. I was talking with Eric saying it just, something doesn't feel right. I haven't heard from Charles, and usually he would text me or send me a message or something. And then Eric asked me, he goes, well, what's his last name? And I said, Vallow. And he was on his computer and he just Googled Charles Vallow. And he said it popped up that he's been killed by his brother-in-law.
Again, I have a bad idea. Okay, Adam, I know that you're probably too close to your family of crazy to see how Googling could have just given you a thought as to where, if you are that worried about Charles, if you think something is wrong deep in your gut and you didn't investigate or interrogate this feeling at all, you're just like, meh, maybe they're getting back together. Maybe they're in Vegas tying the knot again. I mean, the thought process here is just mind-boggling to me, and I'm not trying to be a butt monkey towards him, but my need to know and absolute curiosity would be like, okay, no, I'm going over there to investigate. We're driving by Lori's house. I mean, I've got a Hertz rental car. You know, I would be calling everyone. His kind of lack of meh, I mean, what are you going to do? It just, maybe I'm a more suspicious and nosy person. In fact, that probably is it. Because my husband would be comfortable probably in the same thing. Like, he'll call me when he calls me. I'm just nosy and gossipy, and I just want to be in everyone's business. As long as the drama doesn't involve me, I am totally here with popcorn. So maybe it's just a completely different personality.
So you learn this. What is going through your mind now?
Just everything, chaos. I just knot in my stomach. Just probably one of the worst feelings I've ever felt in my life.
Have a great day, Tammy.
Obviously, you had been concerned that something was being planned when you told Charles that on the morning of the 11th, right? But
Well,
not that.
not that, but yeah, I just felt like something was off, that why Alex would be at Lori's house that morning.
Did you know your brother Alex to carry guns with him?
Yes.
Did he regularly go shooting with guns?
Yes.
Prior to Charles being shot and killed, did you ever tell Lori that you were going to be trying to do this intervention with her?
No.
Prior to Charles being shot, did you ever tell Alex, hey, I'm going to stay with you, but we're trying to do an intervention with Lori?
No.
What about your parents? Did you ever tell them you were going to try to do an intervention?
No.
Your sister Summer?
No.
So if your sister told detectives a couple hours after Charles was shot that she was confronting Charles about you and Charles talking and texting, it wasn't something that you told her about?
No.
You told us that you are LDS. Have you ever taught Sunday school?
Yes.
Can you tell us about the story of Nephi?
Nephi? Mm-hmm. Well, Nephi was a prophet in the Book of Mormon. It's the first chapter.
Okay, if you saw that face, I was like, oh, I need to read my Bible. I don't remember a Nephi, but I'm going to be real honest with you, and I'm not super duper on my Bible reading, and I tend to skip over and kind of glaze out when it's like Asaman beget, so-and-so beget so-and-so beget so-and-so. Those chapters of begetting, I tend to forget. So Book of Mormon, that makes sense. I was like, crap, did I forget a whole Bible person? To be fair, I forget a lot of that, so makes sense.
He was a prophet, very humble and faithful servant of the Lord. Ironically enough, his brothers tried to kill him at one point. But he actually ended up going to Jerusalem to get these plates back. And he was run off, came back, and then went back again because the Lord asked him to. And when he did, the King Laban, who was actually a wicked king, was laying on the ground drunk in front of him. And Nephi was told to kill Laban.
Who was he told by?
The spirit, or, yeah. God.
So God was using a Holy Spirit to tell him to kill Laban, and
Yes.
did he?
Yes, he did.
Okay, and again, not to sound insanely disrespectful, but are these the plates that had the Book of Mormon that Joseph Smith then translated, or are these different plates in Nephi? I'm going to have to go to LDS Sunday school. Oh, okay, same plates. Okay, that makes sense. There's continuity. All right, I was just making sure there weren't like many different plates, so I didn't know if we had like a Book of Mormon 2 coming out soon. And Michelle says, I never heard of Nephi my whole life, then the Charles trial, and it was probably said about 100 times. I can understand that. I will say that at least I'm getting the cliff notes and I'm understanding sort of.
Was that something he anguished over?
Yes.
But ultimately, it was a justified killing.
Yes.
Was the concept that it was better for Nephi to kill this one evil man and sort of benefit the nation and his descendants?
Yes.
Were you aware that that your sister had told people that Charles was possessed by evil spirits?
Yes.
Were you aware that your sister had told people that your brother-in-law Charles was dark?
Objection. Calls for hearsay.
It's whether or not he was aware of it.
Whether
Yes or
he's
no?
aware, he can answer yes or no.
Yes.
When you and Charles were talking about this intervention, were you trying to help your sister come back to mainstream LDS beliefs?
Yes.
So it wasn't just Charles, but also her.
Yes.
You told us that your friend had Googled and learned that Charles was killed. Did you know at the time it was by your brother Alex?
That's what the article said. So yes, he told me that.
What did you do after you learned that?
Freaked out for a little bit, cried, didn't know what to do. Thought my world was coming apart. Then I got angry a little bit and then called first thing I did, I called Kay, who's Charles's sister, and asked her, because she's the only one that I felt safe calling after knowing my family was involved in this or thinking of this, that I asked her if she knew that Charles was dead, and she said she just learned of it too.
Did you learn from your friend when, because it's now the 13th when you learned this, right?
Yes.
Did you learn when that happened?
Yes, I did.
So you knew on that Saturday, the 13th, that Charles had been killed that morning
Yes.
of July 11th.
Yes.
Did you ever come back to Phoenix and confront anyone in your family about this or talk to them about it?
Yes. After I talked to Kay, then I called my mom and asked her if she knew that Charles was dead. And she said yes. And I said, what's going on? And she said, you tell me what's going on. And at that point, I thought that was bizarre that she would say that. So I said, well, we need to sit down and talk. And she said, yes, we do. And so me and Zach got in the car and drove back to Phoenix.
Did you go to your mom's house?
Yes, I did.
Did that conversation go well?
No.
Did this create a break in your relationship with your mom?
Yes.
Did you stick up for Charles?
Yes.
Did sticking up for Charles create issues between you and most of your family?
Yes.
Did you continue to stick up for Charles even with that happening?
Yes.
Sir, take this as a divine gift. Sometimes our family is crap and we get to create our own family. I would take this as the universe telling you that you can choose in your great wisdom and for your mental health to never see or deal with the Coxes again. I would do that if I were me. If I were you, I would move to Guam, maybe change my name. I mean, those are things I would do, but you are no longer obligated to any familial ties with these crazy people. I don't know if you needed to hear that from me, but if you needed to hear that from someone of, well, speaking like they have authority, you are free to never deal with these people again. I wouldn't. Again, they're just going to suck you into their pit of crazy. Get out. Take the lifeline. Run. Run, Forrest, run.
After you had that argument with your mom, what did you do?
Me and Zach left her house and we were staying at Summer's house, my sister, who was away on vacation. And we were staying at her house and we went back to her house. We were watching her dog.
You were supposed to leave the next morning, Sunday, to go back to Wichita. Did you return back home?
Yes, we did.
Did your son go with you this time?
Yes, he did.
After this whole incident happened, did you not talk with your family for a long time?
Yes.
Did it cause a lot of friction in your family?
Yes.
Have you started to try to talk with your family some?
Yes.
No, Cletus, no. No. No, you had a clean break. What have we talked about this? We walk by them. We don't know them. We don't see them. We don't interact with them. You have been given a lifeline away from cray-cray. And if I understand the LDS faith, you're going to have to live with these crazies, for eons, in the future. I would take your time on earth as your only, your free time away from crazy until eternal crazy. Hopefully they'll be transmogrified into something not crazy, but I don't know how all of this works. That being said, I did promise youngest most feral that I would take him to do some fun things today, since he is the only feral child that we have. So I have gotten my 2 hours of streaming in, and I did promise him that we would do some fun stuff, though I can't, maybe the Avengers movie, or no, is it the Fantastic Four won't be terrible? I don't know, something inside and in air conditioning, but we are on the lookout to do something like that. And then I will see you guys tomorrow morning for Mornings with Mo. I do have a couple of newsy nuggets that I will be putting out. The foreperson in the Karen Reed trial has spoken out, and I will do that article. So look out for those newsy nuggets, and then we will be back on the Petty Express for another 2 hours tomorrow. And then we'll probably do a longer stream on Saturday, maybe 3 or 4 hours, try to get things going. But thank you so much for spending... English is my first and only language, and yet I only achieve it about 87% of the time, with accuracy of about 93%. That being said, thank you for sharing your time with me. I am going to send you over to Broken Baker. He is doing, I think, a Connecticut trial. Honestly, I have no idea what that trial's about, but I will tell you that he is a good egg, and you can agree or disagree with him. It's a great chat, so I'm going to send you over there. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and remember, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, but have a sassy mouth and carry a can of bitch fire, 'cause you never know when you're going to meet a Cox. Not this one. Adam seems normal, but the rest of them, profile that last name. If they're from Arizona, I would say hard pass and RSVP no to the enchiladas. But we'll get into the enchiladas next time, guys. Bye.